Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
Hey folks, good to have you here on Friday Eve. It is true crime time, and let me tell you something right now. If you're a fan of the singer David, spelled D4VD, you're going to want to listen up. If you've never heard of David, spelled D4VD, you're going to want to listen up, because I think that guy is shaking in his boots right now. Here's why. A Tesla that's registered to him. Turns out there was a dead teen inside. Butchered. And it turns out there are more coincidences now tying him to that Tesla, like the raid on the home where he was living, where neighbors say that Tesla, with a very distinct look about it, was parked outside regularly, like the things that the officers took from that home. These are not good things for David, spelled D4VD. Also, some songs are starting to emerge with some themes in them that are very dark, very grisly, and yes, one song that suggests the name of the teenager found dead in the trunk of his car. Going to talk all about that in a moment. Charles from TMZ has dug up so much information on this story. He's going to join me with a very long and very specific interview about details and evidence coming up in a moment. If you were with me last night on this show, it was such an unbelievable ambush. 5 officers walked right into a hail of gunfire, trying to do what they do, protect the rest of us from bad guys. Specifically, one bad guy dressed in camo with an AR slung over his chest, looking to stalk his ex-girlfriend with binoculars through her window. Mom and girlfriend were taken to safety, thank God. The officers, who only wanted to serve a warrant, ended up in that hail of gunfire. Today, I have the moment-by-moment account, and I'm telling you, if you didn't think that police officers were badass before this, wait until you hear what they did in this 2-day investigation of this crime and what this monster did to them. That's all coming up in just a moment, plus a ride-along with the elite task force of U.S. Marshals. Our Laura Ingram's going to take us there. Laura Engel, I should say. Little slip. All right, and then this is crazy. An 89-year-old woman was bludgeoned to death in her bed. Vicious, grisly murder. Such an innocent and unsuspecting victim found in a pool of blood in her bed. The suspect is found hours later in the same room, literally washing blood off her hands. The murder weapon, bloodied, left right there in the room. This is an easy one, except nothing about this is easy. The NYPD corrections officers don't know what the hell to do right now with this suspect. It is the most bizarre suspect they may have ever had. And I'm going to go on record tonight. Given what I know about this crime and what you're about to learn, I don't think this suspect is going to spend more than a year, maybe 2, behind bars, if that. The victim's family's lawyer is with me tonight. Going to talk all about it in just a moment. Let me start here, though. I can tell you right now, cops do not like coincidences. And that goes double for cops who are investigating murders of runaway teenagers, especially runaway teenage girls. That fact has got to be hitting home tonight, literally, for the singer known professionally as David, spelled D4VD. I know it's strange, but it's pronounced David. His legal name is David Anthony Burke. And it is quite possible that's the name that was included in the warrant last night that was executed to search the home where he's been living. It's also the same name that's said to be on the title of the impounded Tesla, where the body of a dismembered and decomposing teenage girl was found by police in the trunk, or should I say frunk, the front trunk. That was 1 week ago Monday. If you were with us here last night, you know that that body has been identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose family reported her missing in April of last year. And get this, she may not look it in this picture, but she was just 13 when she went missing. Celeste's birthday, the 15th birthday, was the day before her body was found. But since it was the stench of rotting human remains that led the impound workers to call the LAPD, it is almost certain that Celeste did not live to see 15. For David, who's now on a world tour, none of this is good news, but it's not bad for him yet, legally speaking. That said, here are some of the bizarre coincidences that you cannot ignore in this murder case. This murdered teenager and the up-and-coming singer both have the same tattoos on their right index fingers, reading, shh. To be fair, it is a popular tattoo, SHHH, far from unique. But Celeste's mother says that her daughter was dating somebody named David when she went missing. And yes, David is a common name. I get it. Then there's the photo. A photo of David, the singer, in Celeste's neighborhood, not far from her house, minutes actually walking, right before she disappeared. And should I say that Celeste's house is like over an hour away from where David was living, so not likely just to be there for no reason. And now we know that in December of 2023, a song leaked out that is highly curious in retrospect. It is a demo track by David, and it's called, say it with me now, Celeste. The name of the song is Celeste, and it's all about his love for a girl who's named Celeste. Still, there was no indication that LA police were connecting the dots until last night, when homicide detectives raided a home in the Hollywood Hills. Now, it just happens to be the very same area where the Tesla had been abandoned and then towed. Yet the neighbors say that that Tesla has been parked regularly in front of the home that was raided. And in a town full of Teslas, you're going to find out why in just a moment. Why this Tesla was so memorable to the eyewitnesses who said, oh, it is that one. That's the one right there that was parked outside the home. TMZ reports that that home was most recently occupied by David, the singer, David Anthony Burke, even though it was rented by David's manager. Police reportedly seized a computer and quote-unquote other items. And I talked about all of this and more today with TMZ executive producer Charles Ladebaudiere. And before I play you our conversation, I should note TMZ's reporting was instrumental in helping the police identify that the young victim in the trunk was Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Here's my interview. Charles, this story seems to really be getting legs. What happened today with the house where David had been staying? Tell me about that.
Yeah, this house where David had been staying at least earlier this year, probably even further back. Police had a search warrant. They got a search warrant, and they finally went through the house last night. We got some information about what they were looking for there. We know that there were photos of detectives leaving the house with a computer and then several other bags of evidence, evidence bags. We don't know exactly what they pulled out of there. We know what they were looking for, and it is very clear that they are trying to connect the victim, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, to that home and obviously to David also. We should say the home is about a block and a half away from where David's Tesla was parked when it was towed to an impound yard.
Okay, that's important. The proximity between this home that was investigated and searched and where the Tesla was found, that's key. I have seen reporting that neighbors had seen a Tesla parked outside that home.
Yeah, that very Tesla. We've spoken to several neighbors who said that the Tesla with the Texas plates, which is what makes it stand out here in LA, a black Tesla with those Texas plates. You know, it was registered to David, who is from the Houston area. So we know that that Tesla is his. The thing that's still not clear is who was actually driving the Tesla when the body was placed in the car, who parked it where it was eventually found and impounded. Those are the dots that still need to be connected here. But as for this house, it's very clear that this is where David was staying. There are lots of photos that he posted from that home. You know, he entertained people there. Benny Blanco, came over and he posted some photos with him. The group Cat's Eye was there. They recorded a video with David, like a TikTok video with David in that house. So this is where he apparently was staying and clearly entertaining friends and, posting content from that home. So the one thing we have not seen is a video of Celeste or photos of Celeste in that house. Now, other photos have surfaced showing, it seems pretty clear at this point that David and Celeste had a relationship. There's a live stream that was resurfaced where they were talking to some of his fans, and also a photo of David and Celeste out at an event somewhere in LA in, it appears, October 2023, because there's a photo of David and Billie Eilish at the same event from that date.
In October of 2023, she'd have been just turned 14?
Yes.
No,
I
just
believe
turned 13.
13. And he would have been, so 2023, he would have been 17 or 18.
Yeah, not legal.
Yeah. That
Not
is
legal. If
that is
anything,
another part of this. If
yeah,
it was a romantic relationship, yes, certainly disturbing. And we haven't seen anything like sort of PDA or kissing or anything that would make you think that we could say for sure this was a romantic relationship. But what is clear is they spent a lot of time together. What the nature of the relationship is, we don't know for sure yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to skip ahead to something I was going to ask you in a minute, but I'm going to go there now. Maybe we don't have pictures or anything of them indicating anything romantic, but there's art, there are songs, and now everything's being looked at through a microscope. Tell me about a leaked song called Celeste.
Yeah, the lyrics to this song now, like you said, looking through today's lens, very interesting. This is a song, it was unreleased, but it did leak on SoundCloud in in December of 2023. Some of the lyrics, and again, the title was Celeste. It says, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed."
That's 2023.
December of 2023, right.
Like 4 months before she disappeared.
Right. And actually, I believe there was another time, it appears that I don't know if it was she had run away or just that she was not contacting her mother. And so there was, in January of 2024, a missing report. And then again, another one in April. So her home life is also something we're looking into because it's clear that this was not a stable situation, and that she was in and out of the house. We also know that, there was a photo, and we don't have a date for this one yet. There's a photo of David in a parking lot in Lake Elsinore, California, which for people outside of LA, that is a place that's about 70 miles east of LA. So it's not like right around the corner. And David was in a parking lot there in Lake Elsinore, which is where Celeste and her family live. They're from Lake Elsinore. So
yet another coincidence.
Yes. And by the way, that parking lot, we looked at it on we geotagged the photo and looked at it. It was about a 6-minute walk from Celeste's home where her mom lives anyway.
Then there's another song that I find disturbing. It's 2022. And it's called Romantic Homicide. It is, and there's some lyrics there that are disturbing. It is actually one of his biggest hits. If you look up David's songs on a streaming platform, Romantic Homicide is usually near the top, if not the top song. And some of the lyrics from that song, he says, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you." Important to say, no mention of the name Celeste here.
No mention of Celeste in there.
Doing the math, correct me if I'm wrong, she'd be 12 in 2022.
Yeah, we don't know when they first, met, when their friendship or whatever it was began. But obviously there are a lot of images now of them together. They had some sort of relationship. And now clearly police are trying to connect those dots as well. I got to tell you about the search at the house, we know what while we don't know what they actually left with, we know from law enforcement sources what they were looking for and what they did inside the house. You know, they were looking for blood evidence. We're told that the detectives went through the house. There was with luminol, thinking that if whatever happened to Celeste, if she met her demise in the house, they wanted to see if there was any evidence of blood anywhere in the home. So they were using luminol around the house. They were checking drains to see if there's any, blood evidence or, blood or tissue that was in the drains there. So they did a scouring of this house looking for any evidence. Again, we don't know what, if anything, they found, but our law enforcement sources say when they executed this search warrant, that was on the list, a very long list of things they were looking for in that house.
That's very painful to hear, because we know that this body was dismembered and not all parts of this body were recovered. So it would make perfect sense if they were looking to see where that dismembering happened.
Right.
And also, just remind me, this house is being rented by David's manager.
Yeah, you got to keep in mind that David is a very young, he's 20 years old. So from what we've seen as listings, this house is going, $20,000 that it can be rented for $20,000 a month. It is a large home. It's an estate, really. That's not the kind of thing even a famous 20-year-old could do on his own typically. So it is his manager, a guy who is connected to Interscope Records.
Josh Marshall is his name, right?
Yes. So he is the person we found out who was actually on the lease, who was renting this. But again, from all the photos that David has posted, it's very clear he was staying in this home, if not all the time, frequently he was staying there. Was
the focus just on the house, or did they look elsewhere around the property?
They looked around the entire property. There's the house, there's a yard also where they could have searched for,
what about
and would
a garage?
have searched. Yes, there's a garage there. In fact, I want to say it's a 3-car garage that they went into. They searched there. But
I mean, my mind, being in true crime, goes to Dexter, and garages are often one of the places of choice, for this kind of macabre behavior. Yeah. And then do you have any information on purchasing? Like, was anybody within David's orb purchasing things like the kind of supplies you would need for this kind of an operation? Sometimes the Home Depot, sometimes Walmart. People go in with big cleaning supplies, drop sheets, even tools, that kind of thing. Bleach.
I know where your mind is going, Ashley, and I wish I could say we don't know at this point, but it has been very difficult, I will say, to speak to people in David's orbit, that close friends. As you would imagine, most people are pretty tight-lipped and not willing to say anything at this point because they know what's going on. They know this case has been getting a lot of attention here in LA and growing in the attention it's getting around the country. They know what police are looking for, and so they have not exactly been forthcoming with a lot of information.
Well, you know how that works, Charles. The minute arrests start happening, people start talking because nobody wants to be on the business end of a charge connected with, accessory, after or during, or conspiracy. I mean, these are the kinds of things that make the concentric circle squeeze to the player they're looking for. And I'm not saying it's David. I'm not saying it's his manager. It could be any of the above. You never know. It could be anybody. But just what about David himself? Like, what's going on with him? Is he in hiding? Is he under arrest? What are his management and endorsements? What's happening with him? Boy,
I wish I could tell you all. Here's what we know about David. The last place he was seen publicly for certain was in Seattle when he performed 2 nights ago. He had a show that was scheduled last night, but that one was canceled. And while we figured that he would be coming back to LA, we know that he has an attorney. We have not positively seen him yet. There was a sighting of someone that someone believed to be David, but we can't confirm 100% it was him. So we are on the lookout, trying to find out where he is, but we have not seen him yet. And interestingly, he had shows scheduled here in LA this weekend. He's supposed to be playing at the Greek Theater. And what's really creepy and eerie is that you could go online right now, as we're speaking, and buy tickets to the show in LA. And also there's a show scheduled in San Francisco Friday night that has yet to be officially canceled. So, look, that may change. This is as we're speaking right now, but I would expect it would be really bizarre to see him on stage performing as if nothing's going on when we know police have searched the home where he was living and what we know about his own car and what was found there.
My thanks to Charles Ladebaudiere and TMZ for that. We'll continue to follow it. You know that last night we brought you the devastating news of a deadly ambush in rural Pennsylvania, one that killed 3 police officers and wounded 2 others. But tonight, we know the harrowing details and the backstory, the moment-by-moment account of how those officers were drawn into that hail of bullets by a deranged stalker who was lying in wait. They are details that seem so out of place for a county more used to tractors and farmers than SWAT teams and sirens. We're going to lay it all out step by step on the other side of the break. The headline was horrible. 3 police officers killed, 2 critically wounded in York County, Pennsylvania, just a couple hours west of Philadelphia. It was heartbreaking news that led this show last night, but we have just learned about some jaw-dropping new details that led up to the murders of Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, Detective Mark Baker, and Detective Isaiah Emmenheiser, the 3 officers who lost their lives in a hail of gunfire. The gunman was 24-year-old Matthew James Ruth. Thankfully, he was shot dead before he could kill more officers. He'd already shot 5. Police say that Ruth was lying in wait when the detectives showed up at the home of his ex-girlfriend yesterday to arrest him for stalking her while dressed in camo with an AR-15 slung over his shoulder, peering into her windows with binoculars. The woman had suspected Ruth of setting fire to her truck weeks before and had set up trail cameras outside her house. Very smart move. Because on Tuesday night, her mother saw him on those cameras and called the police. The police swept the area around the ex-girlfriend's house, used a drone even, but they couldn't find him. Still, the woman and her mom cleared out, found safer shelter, thank God. But somehow that jilted boyfriend made his way into her house when they left. And then he waited and waited, and apparently decided to kill the ex-girlfriend's Labrador to keep it quiet. When the police couldn't find Ruth at his own house yesterday, they went back to the ex-girlfriend's house. That's when 4 detectives discovered that her door had been unlocked from the day before. And as they pushed through that door, the hail of gunfire began. Ruth opened fire, killing 3 of them instantly in the doorway and wounding the 4th. Not satisfied with his body count, he then went outside, shooting and wounding a 5th officer before a 6th one shot him dead. Here's the York County DA briefing reporters.
There is one motive, though, that is clear for everything, and that is the hateful scourge of domestic violence. That is what brought us here. That is what brought law enforcement here. That is what started all the activity. Detective Sergeant Cody Becker, Detective Mark Baker, and Detective Isaiah Emmenheiser were all credits to law enforcement. I personally knew them very, very well. They were wonderful. They were mission-driven, and that day they continued their mission.
That bloodshed is just the latest evidence that there's no such thing as routine police work. Serving warrants and tracking fugitives are death-defying acts on the best of days. My NewsNation colleague Laura Ingle got a front row seat this week as she rode along with U.S. Marshals looking for people who really didn't want to be found. People don't realize it, Laura, but this is very scary work.
It really is, Ashley. And as we went on that ride along, you're right, serving those felony search warrants, taking part in high-profile manhunts. It is all part of the job for the U.S. Marshals. In fact, it's part of the job description. It is a dangerous job that requires the strategic maneuvers, as we found out firsthand. Take a look.
Good morning. We're going after Dare and Shine this morning.
Every day before dawn,
We got warrants for domestic violence.
the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force meets up to tackle their mission: to track down the region's most violent and elusive fugitives.
Get that window.
After weeks, sometimes months of surveillance, these task force members come armed with tactical gear and guns to go after these dangerous individuals with felony warrants.
U.S. Marshals with a warrant! Come to the front door with your hands emptied over your head! Do it now!
On this day, the team is 20 deep, with at least half a dozen fugitives in their sights. Their charges ranging from involuntary manslaughter, sexual battery, and domestic violence.
Because this is a domestic violence warrant, there are women and now children. There's a baby that they just brought out.
Stop putting me on that camera, boy!
So he just spit on the camera.
Man, that nigga put me on that fucking camera, bro!
The task force, made up of U.S. Marshals and local law enforcement, is faced with this kind of aggressive behavior on a daily basis.
People don't want to go to jail. They don't, and they make bad decisions. These are the decisions that that they're making, either to fight or flee. But we try to take all that into account and be prepared for that.
I'll be locking down.
This highly orchestrated effort by the task force has team members surrounding the premises, weapons drawn, with a door knock and a wake-up call that no fugitive wants to hear.
Canines are a huge tool psychologically for the suspects and the guys that we're going after, and then also just as a tool for us for searching and not putting us in harm's way.
All of it designed to ensure the safety of not only the officers, but everyone within reach of the warrant being executed.
Once that door opens, we don't know who's on the other side of that door. If the door opens and that guy's got a gun in his hand, I mean, we've got to protect ourselves and protect the public.
Is that our next target? Yeah.
So she stabbed a female a bunch of times and sicked her dog on the female. So she's had a warrant for a little while.
The second target, they were after this woman. Now we see that 2 more men have been cuffed. And
So
does he have a
all
warrant?
down. He does.
And what does he have warrants for?
Some kind of parole violation. Tattooed guy was in the closet in that upper right bedroom.
Sometimes when the marshals go in to go get a suspect, sometimes they'll find other people who might have a warrant for their arrest. There might be drugs or there might be guns inside of the house. And now we see other people taken into custody.
Copy. So target went into apartment 87.
And what are we doing right now? Why are we lined up like this?
We're basically just getting a quick update from them, and then we'll make sure we have everybody, and then we'll roll up.
All right, here we go. It's going to be third one on the right, on our right.
Reinforcements are called in for the most dangerous offenders.
U.S. Marshals, come to the front door! Apartment 87, it's the U.S. Marshals with a warrant! Come to the front door, your hands emptied over your head! Do it now!
I got above you.
Open the door! Do it now! Doors get blown in!
Accused of involuntary manslaughter for allegedly distributing drugs that led to an overdose. Inside the home, their elderly mother and their youngest child witnessed the couple being taken out of their home and away in cuffs. A heartbreaking moment for everyone involved.
So I have 5 kids myself, so usually I'll kind of take a step out as a team lead and kind of hold the kid or make sure the kids got what they need and console them and make it a good experience rather than a negative experience. Because if you have them come out and it's all negative, they just see guns yelling, and then that's all they know instead of us talking to them like a normal human being.
At the end of the day, Northern Ohio's task force is just one piece of a much larger national operation, one that brought more than 74,000 fugitives into custody last year. Each arrest makes America's streets safer.
How rewarding is it when you get your target?
It's always rewarding. I mean, that's why I do what I do, and that's the purpose I have, I feel, and keeps me going every day, is to take bad people off the street.
And their efforts continue to pay off. On our ride along, they took in 5 suspects. And today, the U.S. Marshals here in northern Ohio teamed up with the ATF and they captured 35. So the efforts go on here and throughout the nation, of course. Ashley.
Laura Ingle, that was so fantastic. Thank you for A, doing that, and B, bringing that story to us. I just think that view is amazing to be able to do the ride along like that, especially very timely given what happened in Pennsylvania. Thank you. Yeah. Laura Ingle doing the work for us tonight, and just such a great job. Folks, in most circumstances, a bloody and unprovoked murder usually nets the killer a lifetime behind bars, sometimes even death in this country. But the killing of Nina Krutzhoff is anything like most circumstances. Nina was 89 years old and viciously beaten while she slept in her own bed. After the break, the bizarre reason why her killer likely will not serve more than a couple of years, if even that. I never make predictions on verdicts, no matter the crime, and I sure as hell don't predict the sentences either, but you can quote me on this one. A murder suspect newly booked and charged in New York City will likely get away with serving just a year, maybe 2, 5 tops, if she's convicted of the bloody crime. The victim's name is Nina Krutzhoff, and she was 89 years old. She was a great-grandmother who was born in Ukraine and survived the Holocaust. Last Sunday night, Nina was beaten to death in her own bed as she slept at a nursing home in Brooklyn. When the staff found her in the morning, she was covered in blood, as was the person that police arrested right there in the room. Her 95-year-old roommate, an elderly resident named Galina Smirnova. You heard me. The suspect arrested for this vicious murder is a 95-year-old woman who slept in the other bed in the room. Witnesses told police that while Nina was lying in a pool of her own blood, Galina was found in the bathroom washing blood off of her hands. Police also say the alleged murder weapon was a footrest from a wheelchair that had been detached and was lying right there with the evidence marker. You can also see that it is also covered in blood. The New York Times reports that the other footrest from the wheelchair, that was found outside the room and beneath the window. Tonight, Galina Smirnova, who I repeat is 95, is charged with second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Randy Zellin represents the family of Nina Krutzhoff, the victim, and he's a renowned criminal defense attorney, also law professor at Cornell. Randy, what the hell happened in that room? Were they arguing? Is there some explanation for this?
As far as I know, there is absolutely no explanation for this. What we have here is we have an 89-year-old mother, grandmother, great-grandmother who had been at Seagate for 5 years as a result of having suffered a stroke. There is no history of her being anything other than a booby, other than being a mom, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. She then is bunked with the defendant in this case, a 95-year-old dementia patient. And you don't have to be a doctor. You only have to be a criminal defense attorney to know that dementia patients, regardless of their age, are prone to fits of uncontrolled rage and violence.
Is that going to be the defense here, that this is a 95-year-old woman with dementia who's not responsible for her faculties?
That certainly seems to be the path that the defense is going down. There is a mental disease or defect defense as a result of the dementia. That goes to the intent, the state of mind to commit the crime. And then there will be the question of her competency, her ability to aid in defending herself.
Yeah, so here is this picture of her in the wheelchair, presumably making a court appearance. Do you have any idea, how many times have you been to Rikers or to sort of a New York jail to visit one of your defendants who's newly landed in jail? What do they do with a suspect like this when they process them into a jail? How do they even house them?
That is a great question, which is why you look at the mental disease or defect defense. And this way, what you look to do is have the judge commit your client to the correctional area of, for example, Bellevue Hospital. So you don't end up in a classic detention center, you end up in a hospital, but there is a special part of the hospital for prisoners.
Do you know if they were new roommates? Like, did this suspect show up in this room within the last little while, and did they not get along? Like, is there a backstory at all?
The backstory, as I understand it, and it makes perfect sense, dementia patient. She is a new patient to this facility. She had only been there for 48 hours. My understanding is that because the defendant speaks Russian and Nina spoke Russian, Seagate thought it would be a good idea for them to room together. So the defendant was put in Nina's room. And again, with a dementia patient, putting a dementia patient in unfamiliar surroundings, in making her unsettled, making her unhappy, upset, that leads to rage in a dementia patient. You can never leave a dementia patient unsupervised, unattended, particularly a brand new one when you know nothing about the woman. You certainly don't leave her with an 89-year-old woman. That is a recipe for what we see here. I am on with you right now as a result of what should have been clear as day to Seagate.
Well, if she's convicted and she's sentenced, she's 95. She may not live longer than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe years if she lives to 100 for that murder. Randy Zellin, yeah. I gotta cut it there just because I'm flat out of time and it's already 10:45. But thank you. Will you come back?
Of course.
Love having you. Randy Zellin joining us. By the way, we did reach out to the attorneys for the alleged murderer, Galina Smirnova, and they did not respond to any of our attempts to contact them, but we'll keep trying. Still ahead tonight, we hear about people being radicalized all the time, online or by their feeds. But 50 years ago today, a young heiress was arrested and charged with some of the most violent felonies on the books. Her name was Patty Hearst. And though she didn't have Twitter or Discord, Patty was led down a dark rabbit hole. After the break, our true crime rewind, how Patty Hearst ended up a violent revolutionary. You probably know the term Stockholm Syndrome, and you may know that it dates back to a bank robbery that turned into a 6-day siege in Stockholm, Sweden, back in 1973. The hostages ended up bonding with the robbers who'd taken them hostage, and then they refused to testify against them. But I'm betting that you first heard about that term in a different case, a few years later, when a legendary lawyer represented a bank robber who was caught dead to rights in California. That lawyer's name was F. Lee Bailey, yes, of O.J. fame. His client's name decades before O.J. was Patty Hearst, and I know you know Patty Hearst. Patricia, as she prefers to be called, was the granddaughter of newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst, as close to American royalty as one could get. In 1974, she was kidnapped by the so-called Symbionese Liberation Army. And 2.5 months later, she and her captors turned up on this security camera at a San Francisco branch of the Hibernia Bank. By then, Patricia was going by the name Tanya, and bank robbing was her thing. She was a radical. 2 people were shot in the course of that robbery, and the bandits got away. But a month later, police in L.A. raided the SLA's secret headquarters, killing 6 of the 9 members who were inside, including the group's leader. But Patty/Tanya was not there. For the next 19 months, she crisscrossed the country with her kidnappers turned comrades until on September 18th, 1975, that is 50 years ago today, Patty Hearst was arrested in a San Francisco apartment. Her wealthy family quickly hired F. Lee Bailey to work his magic at Patty's trial. And the ace he had up his sleeve was Stockholm Syndrome. He told the jury that the SLA had brainwashed Patty drugged her, confined her, and abused her both verbally and sexually until she could not think for herself. But the jury didn't buy it. It was the 70s. And Hearst was convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison. But she only served 22 months until President Jimmy Carter commuted her sentence. And then 25 years later, on the last day of his presidency, Bill Clinton granted Patty Hearst a full pardon. In the years since, she's written a memoir, she's appeared in John Waters films, and she co-owns prize-winning French bulldogs. Coming up after the break, most people scowl in their mugshots. After all, it is the moment when they suddenly realize that the world they knew just suddenly came to an end. But every so often we come across a perp or an alleged perp who can find the joy in any situation, including a mugshot. Like this lady in Fargo, North Dakota. And like the movie, nothing about her smile, which is coming any moment. I trust, any moment we're gonna get the mugshot. Please tell me, there it is. What is she smiling about? Given the fact she's being charged for a grisly hatchet job. Full details next. I told you that a woman allegedly hit her sleeping boyfriend in the head with a hatchet and was arrested 2 days later. And then I asked you to guess the vibe that she'd given her mugshot. Would it be this? A 100-watt smile belonging to Lena De Oliveira, 23 years old, of Fargo, North Dakota. Police say that on the night of September 5th, for reasons known only to her, the suspect picked up a hatchet in the dead of night and struck the victim's head so hard that a witness who was there said it sounded like splitting wood. She also allegedly took a whack at her boyfriend's hand, leaving several of his fingers dangling. Somehow, Jonathan Granados survived that attack. The girlfriend and the witness, who were staying at the same house, hit the road, but De Oliveira was picked up 2 days later and charged with attempted murder and aggravated assault. Bond is set at a cool $500,000, which is honestly nothing to smile about. That's it for tonight. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Monday. Good to have you here. I hope you had a great weekend. Let's dive right in because it is a busy, busy Monday. If you know the name Laken Snelling, it's because you've probably been following the story of this young University of Kentucky cheerleader who one morning woke up and, according to police documents, had a baby, wrapped up the baby, put it in her closet, and went off to McDonald's. Some brand new documents that are out that are just sort of jaw-dropping in terms of what this young woman is alleged to have done after having a newborn baby boy. You might notice the black dress. Very different from the red cocktail dress, which was what she appeared in the first time she saw a judge. Everybody noticed it, and this time it was different. I wonder if she got advice. Maybe dress more like you're in mourning than like you're about to go out for a Friday evening. All right, so we're going to tell you all about the internet searches that she's alleged to have made, as well as her roommates, what they did and did not know. Because I think it's hard to, go to term and not have your friends and your family know. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. Also, in the David and Celeste case, David being the singer, Celeste being the young 14-year-old girl who's found dead in his Tesla, lots of new developments here. First of all, as it turns out, the LAPD finally decided to talk and confirm some things and then refused to confirm others. First and foremost, one of the biggest theories when it came to this young woman and why she might have been dead in the trunk was that she might have been pregnant. Well, now the reports are in. We've got the medical examiner's information, and not only does it tell you about her current condition, it tells you about her whole year and whether she'd been pregnant before, all the way throughout the last 12 months. We're going to tell you all of that. And the manager, remember the manager who was reported to have a Tesla in the garage bay at David's $20 million a month mansion? Some guy in a mask drove off with the red Tesla. It turns out it's registered to a manager. Not necessarily the manager, but that manager's talking, and the person he's talking to joins me tonight to talk about their conversation. Then, in the Bay Area, this is so bizarre. I don't know how you're going to react to this. There is an attacker in broad daylight who has now injured 5 people by attacking them, just flying at them and hurting them, scratching them in the face, the arms, all the rest. 2 women have been sent to the hospital. 5 people have been injured. And the police can do nothing about it. And if they catch this perp will never spend a minute in jail. There's a very good reason why. I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but I can tell you this. The neighborhood is none too pleased, and they're starting to make plans themselves. Vigilante plans, what they plan to do to this attacker if they can get their hands on him. All that's coming up in just a moment, but had he lived, the baby born at home to a University of Kentucky cheerleader whose roommates supposedly never even knew she was pregnant would be 1 month old right now. Actually, 1 month and 2 days. Baby's birthday was August 27th. But instead, as you know, that baby didn't live. Police in Lexington, Kentucky found him wrapped up in a towel and stuffed into a plastic trash bag inside the mother's closet. We now know that the roommates found the baby first, and they called 911, but by then the 21-year-old mom, Lakin Snelling, was no longer home. We also know for the first time where she was, and I'm going to let you in on that one in a moment, might make you blink. But when authorities arrived at the scene, we know that the baby was dead. What we don't know yet is whether that little boy was alive after being born, and that matters. In fact, there is something that Lakin Snelling herself would say later on that suggests maybe that baby was alive when he was born. As we've reported before, the now former university student athlete is charged with a couple of things: abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. But notice on that list what's not there? No murder, no homicide of any type. Late last week, she made the trip back to Lexington from her parents' home in Tennessee, where she's under house arrest, and she made the trip for this, which was a very, very short court hearing. What you're looking at right there is not just this big old edit that we made, into a minute. The court hearing was less than a minute. She basically showed up to waive her right to a preliminary hearing. And why does that matter? Under Kentucky law, that basically sends this case to a grand jury. So it's a bunch of, her peers who are going to have to decide whether to indict Lakin Snelling or not. And my money's on the indictment, especially in light of the police reports that came out the same day. Okay, this is where you're going to have to sit down, because these affidavits are filled with information. A lot of it's kind of uncomfortable. The affidavits that were filed to get search warrants show that while Lakin's roommates claim to have been in the dark about her condition all along, Lakin had been Googling, quote, different things pertaining to pregnancy, and had used, quote, different hashtags for different weeks pregnant on social media. Social media, which makes me wonder, how in the dark were these roommates? Don't they follow their roommate on social media? Police also found pictures of Lakin, quote, doing things that ordinary pregnant women would not be doing. And there's no explanation in the affidavit, but we kind of wondered if it was this. These were the pictures that we aired a while back, showing Lakin Snelling in the cheerleading stunt team. She's a member that's flipping and tumbling at a meet that would have put her, by the date of this meet, at about 5 months pregnant. And get this, police also found pictures that Lakin took of herself while in labor. Those were not posted to social media. In fact, those were not easy for the police to find. And I bet you know why I'm about to tell you, right? They were not easy for the police to find because they were deleted. Police say Lakin told them that she gave birth at 4 o'clock in the morning on August 27th. She said the baby fell to the floor of her bedroom. And the roommates actually told police they heard that, but didn't know what it was. Lakin told police she didn't think the baby was alive, but she didn't stick to that claim. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. She said a half hour later, she, quote, passed out on top of the child and woke up to find the boy, quote, turning blue and purple, end quote. She said she wrapped the baby up, quote, like a burrito, and lay next to him on the floor quote, because it gave her a little comfort in the moment, end quote. And here's what else the affidavit tells us. Lakin slept until her alarm went off at 7:30 in the morning. The police say she then wrapped the baby in a towel, put the towel in the trash bag, and put the trash bag in her closet, and then took a shower. After that, police say she cleaned up a little bit more, stashing the placenta in a Ziploc bag, which police say she stashed in the closet with the baby. And then they say she drove to the University of Kentucky campus, but did not go to class. Instead, she ordered food from McDonald's, and after eating, drove to the student clinic. But then, curious, did not enter the building. According to police, she instead went back home, by which time her secret was out. So police took her in, but then they took her to the University of Kentucky Hospital where, and I want to read this actually verbatim because it's important. Ms. Snelling told medical staff that the baby made a whimper and that she, quote, guessed the baby was alive. This is where I'm going to stop, and I'm going to bring in Mark Garagos, defense attorney, podcaster, and longtime friend of the show, and somebody who knows a lot about this because he's had cases just like it. Okay, Garagos, I think that last line is super important to me, that the affidavit says Lakin Snelling told medical staff the baby made a whimper. That's kind of solid proof that the baby was not stillborn, that the baby was born alive.
It's definitely something that the pathologist is going, and the coroner is going to want to factor into his discussion. When we talked about this case last time, we talked about, or you had a guest on that was also a pathologist. And one of the things they talked about, or I at least characterize it as the kind of medieval tests that they use in order to determine this. It really is, for all of the advances we've made in science, when it comes to figuring out if it was stillborn or not, it's still very, very primitive. But the admission from the mother that there was a whimper or a sound which suggests taking a breath, that is key to a coroner making the determination if there was a live birth, because the breath, the lung capacity, that is what they have concentrated on since time immemorial.
Yeah, you can't make a whimper if you don't have oxygen in your lungs, and you don't come out of the birth canal with any oxygen in your system. That's the first breath, as everybody knows. Then she also said after 30 minutes, she said the baby was turning blue and purple. I think it might have been 30 minutes after she kind of woke up, having, in her description, fallen asleep on the baby. And to say the baby's turning blue and purple is another very definitive forensic clue that the baby was actually functioning and alive for all those minutes.
You know, this is why I'm such a friend of the show. You're so sharp to have picked up on that, because if I'm the defense lawyer and I'm taking a look at that, I'm saying to myself, this is precisely why you never want your client to cooperate, because just from a purely legal standpoint, absent her statements that there was a whimper, that the baby was, the fetus or the baby was turning blue, how you refer to it, things of that nature, they don't have a corpus. They don't have a crime. It's only after the fact trying to reconstruct a crime. And boy, I will tell you, a whimper and turning blue, as you just stated, are two of the biggest things that their prosecution is going to hang their proverbial hat on.
Hey, I'm looking at these pictures, and I know I'm going to get assailed for bringing this topic up, but I think that everything matters. Appearances matter. This is Lakin Snelling appearing for her second time in a courtroom in front of a judge. She's tucked in behind her lawyer for a bit of it, but you can see she's wearing a black dress, and she did not glam up. In her first court appearance, she wore a red dress with a lot of makeup. Second court appearance, see, there's the first one, Garagos, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I saw the red cocktail dress and lots of makeup. It matters, doesn't it? As a defense attorney, it matters how your client appears in a high-profile trial.
There are so many things that matter, and let me explain why. As you know, and I'm telling you what you already know, the look in a courtroom or how it is projected outside of the courtroom matters immensely to the ultimate arbiter of this case, which is the jury pool. Why do you think in the Diddy case they're fighting so hard to have him not have to wear jail garb at his sentencing when there isn't even a jury? Because they know that that's going to go out. That's what the public is going to see. Why do you think I have many times said I regret in the Peterson case that I did not allow cameras in the courtroom? Because what they did do is they took some B-roll of maybe a minute and a half, and that became Scott looking with a lack of affect, and that became kind of the soundtrack or video track, if you will, of that trial for the rest of time immemorial. Right here, look what happens. You've got her looking as if she's going, you call it a cocktail attire, I call it a prom dress, into her appearance. That is not the look that you want to have. That is not the look that is going to send the message that you want to send. And I'm not second guessing the lawyers or anybody else, because I've been hoisted on this on myself. But it matters. The things that you don't think matter, matter. I can't tell you the little details that you have to be concerned with.
I'm not judging her either. I don't think this kid knew a damn thing about court and about how to dress. I'm sure she just grabbed what she thought was the most adult thing, maybe in her wardrobe, but these things just do land so unbelievably hard on people, and people are very, very judgmental. I do want to ask you about the deleted pictures. The police always find the deleted file, and the pictures of her giving birth are deleted, as are some of the internet searches. You know, in the legalese, they usually say that's consciousness of guilt, I think. But do you see it as a problem that she deleted a lot of these things?
Well, you know, what people don't quite understand, both for where you search and what's been deleted. When you cross-examine, at least in my experience, when I cross-examine the computer forensics people, what you quickly find out is that something that is deleted is not necessarily deleted. And then what the law enforcement does is they will recreate, they will go to the unallocated space, they'll go to the cloud, they'll go to various other places and recreate what was deleted. That, to your point, can be damning if it's something that shows consciousness of guilt. The other thing on internet searches, I'm always a little leery of that, because anytime you go onto an internet or land on a website, you get bombarded with pop-ups. You get bombarded, and if you were to go in slow motion, which I often do during cross-examination, as to the search browser, searching for that website, many times one of the things that they consider to be a search is not a search. It's not the end point. It's just one of the signposts on the way. So you have to be very careful.
It's a waypoint.
You have to have Yeah, and so one of the things that you're labeling or saying she was searching for may not be.
Okay, quickly, I only have about 20 seconds left, but I've got to ask you about the trip to McDonald's after she, you know, allegedly wrapped this baby up, put it in the closet, put him in the closet, left the house. I remember giving birth twice to two little boys, and I was absolutely famished the next day. And here's a girl who's probably going to be assailed for going to McDonald's when maybe she couldn't face whoever was in her house to get food in the house and just wanted to get away from seeing anybody. But how do you spin that if you're a defense attorney in court? And that's a really ugly fact.
Just basically embracing what you just said. Generally, if you've got either a female judge or females on your jury, or anybody who's been around a female who has just given birth, they're going to tell you exactly what you just said, that sometime right after giving birth, right after you've recovered from what is an ordeal, you become incredibly, incredibly famished. And clearly there is no playbook after these kinds of things. I mean, if you believe that she didn't really know, or she may have suspected but didn't know until it happened, which is the kind of the situation that I've defended on a couple of occasions, There is no playbook for how you react, but there is also, it is a biological fact, so to speak, that you are going to be, as you, to borrow your word, famished. And if you're famished, you're hungry, you're gonna go where you're gonna go.
Gonna go where you're gonna go. I can tell you this, I was almost 40 and there was no playbook for me and I was a total wreck. I can't imagine what this would be like for a 20-year-old something in college without that kind of support. Garagos, always love having you. Thanks so much, really appreciate it.
Good to see you, Ashley. Bye-bye.
We'll see you again soon. Okay, we have to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, though, because the LAPD is finally opening up about Celeste Rivas Hernandez and the singer known as David. It is a case where they have been more tight-lipped than usual. So, how many details did the internet get right? How many did they get wrong? And was Celeste pregnant? Details next. Brand new video of Celeste Rivas Hernandez that completely rewrites the timeline of the case as we've come to know it has surfaced. Video was recorded at the home of Celeste's parents in Lake Elsinore, California, exactly a year ago, or a year before her body was found in the trunk of a car belonging to the rising music star named David. We had been told that Celeste went missing in April of 2024 and that her family hadn't seen her since. But this new video was recorded by a Nest camera on September 8th, 2024, which would make that 4 months after she ran away. The neighbors who provided the video to TMZ say that it shows her arguing with people who had pulled a prank on her. Take a look.
Let me talk real quick, okay? You gonna let me talk? I ain't gonna let you talk. No, you ain't gonna let me talk. Why you not gonna let me talk? You tripping. I ain't tripping. Nah, you tripping. Out the door and you tripping.
Oh my God.
Nah, because you tripping. Move the out of here.
Ain't gonna do shit. Ain't gonna do shit. You better get over there. Get your over there, little girl.
Just by the very dates of this video seems to prove that Celeste visited her family at least once after she ran away for the last time. But a year and a half after the final missing person report was filed, her body was discovered in a frunk. That's the front trunk of David's Tesla. That was just 3 weeks ago. This video was just discovered as we're finally learning what's been going on behind the scenes of the investigation. The LAPD's captain and commanding officer released a statement saying that the body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez was likely in the frunk of the Tesla for a long time before it was discovered. According to Captain Scott Williams, quote, "We know for sure that Celeste Rivas Hernandez died and someone placed her body in the front trunk area of David Burke's Tesla. We know that the Tesla had been parked at the location from which it was towed for several weeks. So it is very likely Celeste Rivas Hernandez had been dead for several weeks prior to her body being discovered." I know, you don't think it's a big deal because it's like, yeah, we know all that, right? Not really. Like, this is the police finally confirming it, and they haven't said a thing. But that really does track with our reporting last week when we spoke with a private investigator who tracked down the tow reports for this Tesla. And they showed that neighbors had called police about that car on August the 26th. Police responded the next day and ticketed the car as per protocol. They got to wait 72 hours between each of the tickets they put on there. And after 3 visits, then they can tow the car. The second ticket came September 3rd, and the Tesla was finally towed September 5th. So by our math, police were involved with the car for a week and a half. But the neighbors who lived nearby said the Tesla had already spent close to a month abandoned on that side road. And by the way, incidentally, it was just 1 street over from David's $20,000 a month mansion that his manager was renting. The Tesla was registered in David's legal name, David Burke. The 20-year-old singer has not been arrested, nor has he been named a suspect. But his friends confirmed to TMZ last week that he was indeed in a romantic relationship with a 14-year-old girl, Celeste. Social media posts indicate they may have even known each other since she was 12, and maybe even 11. Captain Williams responded to the friend's characterization by saying, quote, "As far as their relationship, it would be premature for me to say anything. We are looking into everything." An important piece of the puzzle that has yet to be determined is Celeste's cause of death. The medical examiner has deferred a cause while they await the toxicology results. But one thing they have determined is that Celeste Rivas Hernandez was not pregnant when she died. She had not even been pregnant in the past year either. There was a lot of speculation online that she may have been pregnant with David's child. Maybe that was what led to all of this. But as for David, his reps say that he is, quote, fully cooperating with the authorities. When Celeste's body was first discovered, that's what they said, back on September 8th. That was one day after Celeste's 15th birthday, during which she was decomposing in that trunk. But interestingly, Captain Williams would not confirm that David is still cooperating. David's been off the grid. He said exactly nothing about Celeste, about her dying, nor did he ever mention a thing about her birthday. And remember, her birthday was the day before her body was found, and we all discovered this name, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. So if she was his girlfriend, why no mention of her birthday? Especially if technically, if he's innocent, he doesn't even know yet that she's dead or in the trunk of his car. One person who is talking is his manager, Josh Marshall. David had been living in a mansion, I said, in Hollywood Hills. Here it is. Lise was the manager, right? Some reports suggested that Marshall was also living in that house along with the singer. A red Tesla was driven out of the garage last week by a masked man, and the plates, according to a KTLA reporter who was at the scene, traced back to David's management. The manager, though, Josh Marshall, says, is denying the accusations on TikTok that this is his car. He uses the handle JMogul. His post was in response to a TikTok video accusing him of being involved in Celeste's death. And Marshall wrote this in response, quote, "I had zero knowledge of anything, and I don't live in California. I work remotely 95% of the time, and my job doesn't require me to have much interaction with any of my clients / David, as there are many others that work with him on a day-to-day capacity. Not me." LA Magazine confirmed that Josh Marshall was in fact behind those TikTok comments. The headline reads, "Josh Marshall breaks silence on TikTok amid Celeste Rivas Hernandez investigation." Lauren Conlon was the writer of that piece, also the host of the Outlier podcast, and she joins me now live. It was a really good break, you being able to connect with Josh Marshall to get him to confirm these things. Did he say anything else? Did he mention anything about where his client David is right now?
No, Ashley, and truthfully, I saw these comments on TikTok on this random video. I could not believe it, and I'm thinking to myself, it's been weeks. There have been so many allegations. Josh Marshall has not said anything yet. So, in order to file this story, I really had to make sure that it was him and these messages were authentic. So I messaged him, not really expecting to get a response. I did some diligence, so I was about 98% sure it was him. And he did write back, and he just confirmed that it was him, and he just stood by his statements, and that was it. So it really wasn't much of anything. However, I still am kind of in shock, because the first time you speak out, why would you clap back, in the comment section of a random TikTok video? I do feel like he possibly has consulted with a lawyer, which is maybe why he didn't bring Celeste's name up at all. And he didn't really say anything else besides the denial of knowing anything. So who knows? But I was just really surprised.
Well, I was happy to get that clarification that the car license plate traced back to management, not him as manager. So it was interesting to hear him say, "Hey, hold it, that's not my car." The jury's out on that, but I'll take him at his word for now until we know otherwise. I want to ask you about this mystery email. This is just so curious, though. It's an email that apparently was sent to Josh Marshall. Again, this is the manager of the singer, David. And it's sent by, quote, adults in Celeste's life after her final runaway in 2024. Or rather, not her final runaway, one of her runaways in 2024. The day after the email, Celeste returns home, almost as though the email gets to David and Celeste, and they're like, go on, they're on to us. You better go home, right? The private investigator we talked to about this said that there is proof that the email was sent. Do you know at all if the email was received?
Well, according to Josh Marshall, he did not get any type of email. And this is what I think really possibly triggered him to write this denial. He was just like, no, I never received any email. I have no knowledge. And this statement was actually made on a live stream that I did. And I think what happened was it just got clipped by different TikTokers and different content creators. And the headline here was, you know, Josh Marshall knows. What does Josh Marshall know? And he's like, what are you guys saying? I don't know anything. So it felt like it was important to him to clarify this. However, you know, when I saw this, I did go back to my source, the private investigator that we both know. And he's like, nope, I stand by this. I see it right here. I'm looking at it. And not only that, Ashley, he said that his source behind this email sent it to law enforcement, and now it's in law enforcement's hands. So, I mean, it's definitely, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a he said, she said here, but I'm trying to report both sides. I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to be unbiased and open-minded, because when it comes to this case, Ashley, I am baffled. My mind is racing every day, and the police owe us nothing. They owe us nothing. And, you know, unless we are in danger, unless the public is in danger. So I'm grateful that they're speaking out. However, it seems like more of the same, just in different words.
I'm with you. Lauren Conlon, thank you for this. Great job. And I look forward to our next chat. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Good work from Lauren Conlon. Okay, I need to pause here because I want to run these latest details and the documents past an expert. He is the PI that we just talked about, and you met in our special report on Friday, who gave us the details on the Tesla days before the police did, and who's been reading between the lines on the dead runaway's death certificate. He's next. It's been 3 weeks to the day since the body of a teenage runaway was found in the trunk of an impounded car owned by a prominent young singer who happened to be her boyfriend. It has been assumed and sleuthed and now officially confirmed by police that the body had been in that trunk for several weeks before that. But now police are also saying that until and unless they determine how Celeste Rivas Hernandez actually died, they will not know whether she's a homicide victim or an accident victim, or maybe even took her own life. In a statement to NewsNation, the LAPD captain overseeing the investigation said the following, quote, "It remains unclear whether there is any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body." Wow. Which is all the more interesting when you remember the LA police chief indicated that this was a homicide, like last week. This was a homicide investigation. He did it in a TV interview. Keep in mind also that the medical examiner doesn't even have Celeste's remains anymore. Those were given back to her family also last week. My next guest is a private investigator specializing in missing persons who's been looking into the mystery of Celeste's death. Steve Fisher, welcome back to the show. Let's just dig right into that. Last week, we've got the chief of police, Jim McDonough, saying, whenever you investigate a homicide, you look at all the associated issues as well, and that's something they'd certainly be looking at when asked about this case. That I perked up. There he was talking about a homicide and the associated issues. Now we're hearing from his LAPD captain. It remains unclear whether there's any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body. How does this square with you? Is this a misstatement? Are they, one hand's not talking to the other?
Two wildly different statements, right? I think that maybe what the chief was saying is that all these, cases when you got a deceased body, that's not an obvious. The reason why is investigated as a homicide, and then it could be determined later not to be. But the statement about if there's any, criminal culpability, maybe just the concealment of the body, that's a misdemeanor. in California. That's something that has a $1,000 fine and $1,000 to $10,000 fine and up to a year in jail. But somebody without a record will get probation. We're talking about a minimal charge considering what we were thinking. And I was really, really, really disappointed to see that there wasn't any mention when they talked about the criminal culpability of any harboring, trafficking, sex crimes against an 11 to 14-year-old girl. It's like they're not even looking at it. I know that there was a statement that looking at all the relationship, but when it came to the criminal part, it did not bring that up, and that's just horrible as far as I'm concerned. That's the worst part.
Or maybe he's just waiting for David to talk to someone, and there it is. There's the evidence. He's mentioned it himself. He thought he was in the clear. We gave him a long leash, and he hung himself with it. Maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. Quick question, though, about the pregnancy. That was huge to me. When they said that she was not pregnant, nor had she been pregnant for a year, it was huge to me. Do you think it complicates anything, or do you think it just rules that part out?
I think it's actually a good sign for the rest of the autopsy, because if they were able to determine that means that they probably did so through HCG hormone tests, which they got from probably the vitreous humor gel that's behind the eyeball. So that means that they will also be able to get full toxicology. She wasn't in such a state where they lost that. So if they were able to make this determination about pregnancy, then they can also get the toxicology and find out exactly what was in her system, how much, what levels, and from there can determine if that's, accidental or if maybe there was something nefarious, and also what it is, because there are, if it's fentanyl and somebody gave her that fentanyl, then they can be held responsible. That is a criminal act.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. It makes a big difference. Steve Fisher, thank you so much. Good to have you on the show again. Look forward to the next time.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Still to come, a serial killer murders 4 people on this day 43 years ago without ever coming close to any of the victims. His plan was brilliant, but almost impossible to pull off today. If you remember a time when you could pop off the cap to a Tylenol bottle without ever seeing a safety seal, you lived through this national terror. After the break, how the Tylenol killer did it, who the police tracked down, and what happened when they made an arrest.
As police try to solve the cyanide murder case, the sleuthing being done in federal and local laboratories may be the key element in breaking that case. At O'Hare Airport, a basement chapel was the scene of a memorial service for one of the 7 Chicago area cyanide victims.
It is our True Crime Rewind, and it's next. If you ever struggled through a blinding headache to peel off the seal of an over-the-counter painkiller after slicing through the industrial-strength tape on the box, our next story is the reason why. 43 years ago today, on September 29th, 1982, Mary Kellerman, a 12-year-old girl from a Chicago suburb, died completely unexpectedly. And it happened just hours after her parents gave her an extra-strength Tylenol capsule to treat a sore throat. That same day, just 7 miles away, a 27-year-old postal worker named Adam Janis also dropped dead. At first, doctors thought he'd had a heart attack, but soon they realized he was poisoned with cyanide that came from an extra-strength Tylenol capsule. But before they knew that, Adam's brother, Stanley, and Stanley's wife, Teresa, rushed to Adam's house. Racked with grief and stress, they too reached for the Tylenol bottle that Adam had bought just that morning, and they too dropped dead. Over the next few days, 3 more people in the Chicago area died from poisoned Tylenol capsules. And there surely would have been more victims had a sharp-eyed county nurse not visited the Janis home herself and counted 6 capsules that were missing from the brand new bottle. Paramedics also took the bottle from young Mary's house and tested it too, and suddenly the link was made. Right after that, Johnson & Johnson recalled 31 million bottles of Tylenol at a cost of more than $100 million. Investigators determined that the tampering happened after the capsules had left the factory. So the company soon developed the tamper-proof packaging that is still in use today. But the mystery remained. Who was putting the poison into the Tylenol capsules? Here's more from our NewsNation affiliate, WGN.
The tragic story of the Tylenol murders continues to unfold in the Chicago area as police try to solve the cyanide murder case. The sleuthing being done in federal and local laboratories may be the key element in breaking that case.
Someone poisoned extra-strength Tylenol, the best-selling pain reliever in America, with lethal doses of potassium cyanide.
Tylenol had been tampered with.
7 people in the Chicago area died. Several other Tylenol deaths were reported across the country.
At O'Hare Airport, a basement chapel was the scene of a memorial service for one of the 7 Chicago area cyanide victims.
The person responsible was never arrested, and the country grappled with a wave of fear over tampering with everyday products at grocery stores.
The mayor is also concerned about possible tampering with foods such as salad dressings and peanut butter and pickles.
Weeks after the killings began, Johnson & Johnson received a chilling letter offering to, quote, stop the killing in exchange for $1 million. The letter was traced to a New York tax consultant named James Lewis, who was convicted of extortion but never charged with the murders themselves. In 2022, on the 40th anniversary of the murders, authorities interviewed Lewis again, still looking for leads or connections, but they came up empty. Lewis died a year later, and the Tylenol murders remain unsolved today. Coming up after the break, 2 women are hospitalized after a violent attack in broad daylight. And even though they know who did it, there is 0 chance that he's ever going to go to jail. We're going to show you the attacker and tell you what kind of justice the neighbors have planned. Next. There's a lot of great things about California. It is the Golden State, after all. But the same Mother Nature that gave us the ocean and the beaches and the mountains has to answer for the earthquakes and the wildfires and the mudslides and the mountain lions. And now an urban predator that hides in plain sight and strikes without warning. You can add to that list. Whose victims never see it coming until it is too late. Because that is the ferocious attacker, a squirrel. A really, really mean and super aggressive squirrel is now being blamed for attacking more than 5 people and sending 2 of them to the hospital. This is in the Bay Area, in the city of San Rafael. One victim says that she was walking along, minding her business, when the mad squirrel launched itself right off of ground level and planted itself on her face. The suspect is still on the loose tonight, and we are assuming that just the one that's behaving this way, it's just this one, not others. And for what it's worth, it is important to note, squirrels do not carry rabies. So thank God for that. But I might have spoken too soon when I blamed Mother Nature, because the Humane Society is blaming the attacks on humans who feed the squirrels and thus teach them that people equal food. So the picture's the best, right? Best to keep your trail mix to yourself, folks, and you won't need a catcher's mask if you want to head out for a daily walk in the park. Of course, that would be nuts now, wouldn't it? But there you go. That's why he's never going to end up in jail, because the wily little guy can't be caught. So the neighbors are going to try to find him themselves. Okay, also, Drop Dead Serious, check it out. I have extensive coverage on Lake and Snelling, going deep into the affidavits to find out everything that the police have found out and have written up on this case, as well as that court document. And Abby Escobar from Abby Blabby is going to join me as a guest. Hey, everybody, welcome. It is Monday night, and I have a lot to tell you about a singer named David. And if you didn't know him before, you might know him now. And if you don't know him now, you need to know who he is. He's an upcoming R&B singer. He spells his name kind of weird, D4VD, but he goes by David. And the reason he's making big headlines ain't because of his music. It's because of the dead body that was found in his Tesla. Not just any dead body, a teenage girl found rotting in the frunk of his Tesla. And since this happened, the number of coincidences that have been piling up between the singer, known as David, and the teenage girl, definitely identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez, is uncanny. We've been adding to them every night, and tonight there are more, including really weird TikTok posts that he forwarded from other people showing meat being cut up, suggesting if a girlfriend did that, maybe this was what would happen. There's a lot of really strange stuff, and because there's so much information, tonight I have for you a full timeline of everything that has happened, when it's happened, and how it corresponds with ages. It's very important because, as we all know, it's not just a potential murder, it's also a potential underage sex crimes, because that girl in the trunk was a girl. She probably hadn't yet turned 15. And the timeline I'm going to tell you tonight takes her back to about age 12. You heard me. Got a great lineup for you. Not only are you going to hear from Charles from TMZ, who's got a lot of information, but also I've got a true crime podcast panel who's going to lay all of this out for you. Also, I've got new information on the death of that sailor, Angie Resendez. I mean, in any true crime, we can usually find out something, but because this is military justice, it has been so under wraps. Except that we have an insider who was actually in the hearing last week. And we found out a hell of a lot about the guy who was behind bars awaiting some kind of justice in this young woman's death. And as it turns out, this young man has some pretty bad skeletons in his closet. And when I say closet, that's also where Angie was found. Her mother is on with me tonight. She was in the hearing because she's allowed to be. She's going to talk to me a little bit about everything we learned in this case. And then also, I absolutely can't believe the trend that has happened in the last 15 years in my long, long true crime career. But it's a trend I thought had to be a mistake. Victims of crime being bullied by trolls. Again, victims of crime, not the criminals. The victims, and if the victims died, their family members being bullied by online trolls. I know, I don't get it either. But you can ask the family of Shanann Watts, who was murdered by her husband, Chris Watts. He also murdered their children. Shanann was pregnant. Shanann's family has been relentlessly bullied. You can ask the kids' parents from the Idaho 4 murders. They are also bullied online. Joe Petito, death threats after Gabby was killed. It's unconscionable, but tonight, a bully hunter. Somebody you've seen on Netflix, and he's about to go on A&E, not before he's on this show tonight. You're gonna meet him. He's gonna tell you about what he's doing to fight back against these scuzzy people. I want to start here, though. It was 2 weeks ago today that the LAPD was called out to a towing yard because of a stench that was coming from the trunk of an impounded Tesla. I know you know what they found. The badly decomposed body of a 14-year-old girl who likely spent her 15th birthday the day before rotting in that trunk. The Tesla belonged to an up-and-coming R&B singer, a young guy who was away on a world tour at the time that that body was found in his vehicle, but he's not away anymore. David, as he's known, has gone off the grid, radio silent, as disturbing connections to that teenage girl just keep piling up. And now LA police have confirmed to our show that they are actively looking for more connections, AKA evidence. A statement they sent to us begins by confirming the search that we told you about last week. Quote, on September 17th, 2025, detectives from Robbery Homicide Division served a search warrant on the 1300 block of Doheny Place in connection with the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. That is it. I mean, they're actually confirming it now, right? It goes on to say this. Several items of evidence were recovered and will be analyzed by detectives in the coming days. This is an ongoing investigation. Investigators are following up on several leads, end quote. Well, that's pretty, I don't know, stark, but it says what it needs to say and it doesn't go any further. For several months, neighbors say the aforementioned Tesla, where Celeste's remains were hidden in the frunk, had been parked out in front of a home where David was living, a home that was raided, the same home that was raided by the police. TMZ reports that the home had been rented by David's manager and that David had indeed been living there before he went on tour. TMZ also reports that detectives spent 12 hours looking for blood stains or blood evidence in that home, very tight-lipped about whether they found it. And on the very day of that search, the rest of David's U.S. tour was canceled. And a few days after that, the global tour went away as well. Celeste Rivas Hernandez had been missing since April of 2024 when she was just 13 years old. 13! In April of that year, David had just turned 19. He's now 20. And in a moment, I am going to get to why age matters so much in this mystery. But first, a vigil was held yesterday for Celeste in her hometown of Lake Elsinore, about 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles. Her brother Matthew says on the day she disappeared, she was on her way to see a movie with her boyfriend, whose name was, you guessed it, say it with me, David. Before I go on, you should know this. There is no definitive proof at this point that the David Celeste was dating is the singer of the same name, nor is there concrete proof that a girl named Celeste that the singer appears to know is in fact the dead teenager named Celeste. But as I said days ago, police really hate coincidences. And tonight we know these coincidences were on full view as far back as October of 2022, when Celeste Rivas Hernandez was just 12. Let me repeat, 12 years old. At that time, David, the singer, was 17 and taking part in a group chat with his fans on Discord. And in the chat, he wrote, "Celeste in here?" To which someone named Celeste replied, "Hi, David, bark." The two seemed familiar with each other, which means if this really was Celeste Rivas Hernandez in the chat, whose birthday was September 7th, they may have actually connected when she was only 11. Fast forward, December 2023, a demo of a love song by David leaks out online, and the name of the demo song is Celeste. Days later, on January 11th, 2024, David appears on a live stream with a girl who looks an awful lot like Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The girl tells him, "We need to delete this." David tells the moderators, quote, "Mods, can we delete all vids? And then as soon as the stream ends, delete the stream too?" The following month, February 2024, Celeste Rivas Hernandez goes missing for the first time before returning home. February 26, 2024, David posts something on TikTok and another user comments, and I quote, "Waiting for LAPD to get your ass for messing with a 13-year-old girl." A month later, March 28th, 2024, David's fans discuss rumors that he's dating someone, and one of the fans writes, "Yeah, her name is Celeste." April 5th, 2024, Celeste Rivas Hernandez is reported missing. Her brother says she was going to the movies that day with someone named David. Almost 3 months later, June 27th, 2024, David reposts a TikTok video of someone chopping up meat. The caption reads, quote, "Me if I see her talk with other dudes." Skip ahead to February 2025. The music video for David's song, "One More Dance," is released, and it features a body being dragged and put into the trunk of a car. David plays both the killer and the victim in the video. 1 month later, March 2025, David releases his Withered album. 5 months later, August 5th, 2025, David starts his world tour. And 1 month later, on September 3rd, 2025, neighbors in the Hollywood Hills, near to where David had been staying, noticed the singer's Tesla abandoned on the side of the road. 3 days later, September 6th, the car is towed to an impound lot. The very next day, September 7th, is Celeste's 15th birthday. But one day after that, September 8th, workers at the impound lot call police because of a terrible stench coming from the Tesla that had just been towed there. Police opened the trunk and discovered the badly decomposed remains of Celeste Riva Hernandez. She's wrapped in plastic. This Celeste has the same tattoo on her right index finger as the singer David does. It reads, shh. Now, much of what we have known about this case for 2 weeks, and many of the facts in that timeline, they were first reported by TMZ, who have been digging on this case every single day. And earlier, I caught up with TMZ's executive producer, Charles Ladibaudiere. Here's our conversation about the case.
I'm always curious when it comes to a vigil for someone who is a victim of a violent end. And for all we know, I don't know how Celeste died, but she was certainly treated horrendously in death. I always wonder if the killers show up at the vigils. Did you see or do you know of any evidence of police who were at that vigil, or maybe even undercover officers just watching to see who showed up?
There were police officers there, but as far as a presence that made you think they were watching, there wasn't anything obvious that I saw in the video. But they could have been there, and we know that that is an MO, that's not just something you see in movies and stuff. Like, it really does happen. So
Scott Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, the police detectives, I'm sure, I would think, are aware of that, and that maybe they did have people there. I mean, that's a really good point, Ashley, and maybe they did. But again, there's been not only no arrest, there's no named person of interest, and no named suspect, which doesn't mean the police don't have a suspect.
Right.
This means they're
Close
not
to the vest.
Yeah, they're just not willing to share it with us yet.
I'm looking at other things, and so are people online, and I know TMZ is as well. His posts are really starting to stand out. Like, he reposted someone who was cutting up meat and said, quote, "Me if I see her talk with other dudes." Now, he didn't write that, but he reposted it from someone else, and it clearly shows he would either cut up the person the girl was talking to, or he'd cut up the girl. That was sent before, obviously, Celeste was found murdered. But then there's another one of him washing his sneakers that she'd been photographed in. These are all, again, by themselves, not much. Together, they're forming a picture.
Yeah, you know, we're talking today about the lyrics, and you know, we've talked about romantic homicide, and those images that you're just talking about, all sort of paint an image of an artist, right? Like, clearly, the best case scenario, you could look at that and say, this is just an image, a very macabre image he wanted to have out there for himself as an artist. But in light of what has happened now, it's impossible to not look at those things through a different lens. Now, that's maybe unfair to him as far as legally speaking, because again, he's not a suspect. But when his car, at the very least, we can say his car is connected to this crime. And now you start looking at all these things. It's hard not to look at it and go, what's going on there?
It's uncomfortable. I mean, not only that,
very uncomfortable.
Charles, you know, he is apparently, you know, he'd been selling these blood-spattered T-shirts.
Blood-splattered shirts, yeah.
Yeah, a casket on the stage, part of the act. Then there's music video with a body being put into a trunk. Again, none of it would stand up in a court of law, but looking at all of these things together, it does give you a picture of somebody whose mind works a little differently.
It definitely works a little differently, but you know, on the other hand, you would say, I'm sure his attorney would say to you, that's his art, right? And you can't prosecute someone or arrest someone based on their art.
It's true. He hasn't been accused of anything. He hasn't been named as a person of interest in this particular case. It just happens to be that it's his car where the body was found, and it's his home that they raided, and that tells us a lot. Like, even when Diddy was in limbo, we talked about the fact that they'd raided 2 of Diddy's homes. I think an arrest might be imminent, and what do you know? I do want to ask you, though, about the sales of his records and the streams. None of this has affected him in a bad way.
No, I mean, as far as his music career goes, it sounds really weird and macabre to say, but it's helped. It has helped put David on the radar screen of listeners around the country. His album, just re-entered the Billboard 200, which is the album charts. And that would not have happened without all of this attention and people, you know, listening to like, oh, who is David? You know, and actually we do a lot of talkbacks with our affiliates around the country here. And I've had the question asked several times. People going like, huh, I didn't know about this, didn't know about his music, and I've been listening to it now. And that's exactly what's happening. His streams, his song Romantic Homicide had its biggest week ever streaming on Spotify last week. So people are listening, they're checking out his music.
To that end, can I just ask you about all of the chatter online about, and I think this is important, about the age of Celeste, who I say did not make her 15th birthday. No way. You're not that decomposed one day after your birthday. So she was 14 when she was, well, either died or was killed.
Right.
And as we go back in time, we have the possibility of them having chatted or met online at age 12. Why is there not more attention being paid to that? Or maybe legally speaking, is there?
Legally speaking, that may, depending on what they're finding, it could end up being, you know, something that is one of the charges if he were to be arrested. But people are paying attention to that. And I know I think there's not as much talk in the media about it because we just don't know if he's even the suspect, right? We don't know.
Sure.
Yes, his car is connected, but that's really all we know for certain at this point. So maybe people aren't getting to that point, but you're right. Online, people are taking notice of that. You know, we saw a TikTok that David had posted last year, and one of the comments on the TikTok, and this comment was from February this year, earlier this year. So before anybody, you know, before this happened to Celeste, before anybody was connecting his car to this, before that even happened, the comment said, waiting for LAPD to come grab your ass for talking to a 13-year-old or something about
waiting for LAPD to get your ass for messing with a 13-year-old girl.
Right. So somebody there was already putting those pieces together long before the world knew about Celeste. Clearly, people knew about David at that point, and I think his fans were aware that he was spending time, whatever their relationship was, with this young girl.
Again, that's Charles Ladebotier from TMZ. I now want to bring in three people who have been following this story from the very beginning. Lauren Conlon is the host of the true crime podcast, The Outlier, and Pop Crime TV on YouTube. Pascal hosts the very popular online show, The Pascal Show, which covers true crime. And journalist Segun Oduloluwu is also with us tonight. All right, I'm going to start with you, Lauren, if I can. David has not been arrested, and I think a lot of people are sort of astounded that there hasn't been movement. I think I went off the air on Friday and might have been a podcast afterwards saying, I expect an arrest pretty soon. What are your thoughts on this, and what's the general consensus?
Yes, I agree with you, Ashley. But at this point, I am thinking there is so much evidence to parse through. I mean, in terms of the fact that they searched his house for, 8 to 10 hours, that's going to take time, DNA, possible blood. And then you have David, who has admittedly said that his entire life is online. I mean, this guy is all over TikTok. He's all over Discord. He's all over Reddit. I mean, they are going through his devices, Ashley. They are going through his text messages, his emails, everything and anything they can find, and that takes time. Additionally, the internet sleuths have dug up so many photos, so many videos, and police are paying attention to that. But they also have to make sure everything is authenticated here, right? That everything is real. So I am hopeful that we'll see some movement this week.
Yeah, well, if anybody out there is fabricating videos with AI and sending them to the police, they're going to have a knock on their door. It's called obstruction of justice and filing false reports, etc. All right, so Pascal, something that Lauren just mentioned struck me, and that is that people have been finding things online, including video of David cleaning a pair of shoes, the same shoes that Celeste was seen wearing in other images.
Yeah, the internet sleuths will always be undefeated. And let me just say that really quick. Yes, they did find some videos of him, or one video of him actually cleaning a litany of different shoes. And at the very end, he started washing these Jordans that apparently she's wearing in some photos. Now, a lot of people are wondering, is that him? Are we watching him live getting rid of evidence to a crime, or is he just simply cleaning some shoes? I think a lot of people are wondering a lot of this. And again, man, the connections to everything has just been out of this world.
Yeah, Shagun, I have a hard time believing that anybody would commit some terrible crime and then go online to show the aftermath. I just can't imagine it. I think it's more fascinating that it's the similar pair of shoes, like just yet another connection between this girl and this singer. But Shagun, that's really the issue at this point. What kind of actual connections are being made other than she disappeared after she went to a movie with someone named David, and a teacher who said, I had a student named Celeste. Like, has anybody been able to make a hardcore connection to a romantic relationship between these two? Because you know what that means. Then it's not just a murder investigation or a suspicious death. It's also child sex crimes.
Well, Ashley, you bring up a really good point, and let's with what Lauren said and what Pascal said, let's keep it at its most simplest level. The tattoos are problematic, that they have matching tattoos, or the body found in the trunk of the car and the singer David have that same tattooed on their fingers. That's problematic. The point you brought up, Ashley, of someone going online and, wearing the same shoes. We saw O.J. Simpson write a book that said, I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how I would have done it. So people are dumb, usually criminals. That's why they get caught. They do something stupid. And this guy is doing songs and making videos where he's hacking up meat and songs to her with her name in it. So if we put it at its basis level, I need him to be questioned, because why is this underage girl in the trunk of your car? Why is this car at the house that your manager rented for you? Why do you, at the age that you might have met her, how did your paths cross? And as we're looking at all of that, because as journalists, we look for the what happened and when did you know it? I need a conversation with her parents, because I need to know how a girl this young was making her way from Lake Elsinore all the way to the Hollywood Hills and disappearing for days at a time only to come back. And all of the discord and online knew, but her family is not involved. We agree there are a lot of questions, but some of these answers can happen if we put a microphone in front of people and start asking, what did you know and when did you know it?
I want to know if he's been brought in for questioning, or if he has invoked his right to the fifth, if that has happened so much. But I have to throw in a quick break here. Guys, don't go anywhere, because I have a lot more questions for you, especially about the sex crimes part. Murder aside, was someone doing something illegal with an underage girl as young as 11, a girl who ended up dead? Are police investigating that part of the story too? The potential of child sex crimes. We're going to dig into that with the panel next. In February of 2024, somebody commented on David's TikTok and said, quote, waiting for LAPD to get your ass for messing with a 13-year-old girl. Did that somebody know something about Celeste? I want to bring back our panel of true crime podcasters, Lauren Conlon, Pascal, and Shagun Oduoluwu. Okay, I'm going to start with you again, Lauren. Isn't it surprising that we're not hearing anything at all about the investigation into a possible sex crime, given there seems to be ample evidence just online that these two met a long time ago?
Yes, that was my first thought, because normally we see, police arresting their suspect on something else in order to hold them. And this has not been the case. But something I keep thinking about here is that police really do need tangible evidence that they were in a sexual relationship. I mean, you said it though, at this point, her mother has confirmed she had a boyfriend named David. Her brother confirmed it. We've seen a lot online, but I go back to this. I really do believe that police law enforcement are sifting through all of his devices to confirm this. And something else, Ashley, that I've kind of been asking myself as well is how many people knew about this? How many people either looked the other way or were possibly complicit in their alleged relationship? Because, I mean, even the teacher, that video of her teacher saying that he knew that she was talking to the singer David, and also that video or a photo, I'm sorry, of David appearing in a parking lot that's right by Celeste's home, right by her school. He appears to be talking with another student. And listen, the rumor mill is going wild about that photo because now there are allegations that people did know, but they were being paid off. And those are completely unfounded, but I just wanted to point out what was going on in the rumor mill. So yeah, I have a lot of questions about why there hasn't been an arrest yet on, the fact that he could have been committing statutory rape.
I will also say this. A teacher is different than the rest of us. They actually do have a duty to report. It doesn't seem to me that that particular teacher who was online knew anything more than this girl had met a person on social media. It falls on the parents at that point to really find out what their kids are doing. And if they don't come home for the night, get after it, do something about it. But it's certainly not up to the teacher to do that. Pascal, jump into that, by the way. The ages. I know I just read the whole timeline, but it's so overwhelming to even me. Remind us about when they first met and what the ages we're talking about here are.
Well, what we understand is they apparently were talking around the time that David was actually 17 or 18 and Celeste was around 12 years old. There is speculation that maybe they started sending flirtatious text messages or DMs for her as young as 11 years old. But that's still speculation right now.
Well, 11 would be just unbearable. 12 isn't any better, and 13 is awful as well. But I do think about that little moment in the chat room. Celeste in here, and that was so early in the fall that it seemed when she answered Bark that there was a familiarity there, that they may have known each other before. And she, of course, her birthday's, September 7th, so she would have been 11 just a few weeks prior to that. Shagun, missing multiple times, and it's possible that the police brought her back. That's what the teacher says. We're not sure if that's what happened, but when she went missing in February the first time, only to be brought back, then to go missing again in April, that it might have been the police who brought her back the first time, which, if that's true, I don't know if you agree with me, it would be insanity that this girl was missing for a year and a half in the very place that she was likely brought back from prior.
Yeah, Ashley, this is the thing that kind of boggles my mind. And again, I don't want to be the hardcore, cold journalist that puts a microphone in the faces of the parents. But if your girl, if anyone understands that Lake Elsinore is 78 miles away from Hollywood, how at that age is she getting back and forth to go see this guy, David? Because the Ubers are going to be in the hundreds of dollars. So where was the money coming from? How was she getting back and forth? And if she disappeared and came back, how are you as parents not sending her away to live with relatives? How are you not keeping a closer eye on her? How are you not asking the questions? Who's your boyfriend, David? Where did you go? What happened? Let's get to the bottom of this. This is not to say that they didn't, but again, all of this is way too coincidental for him to have a song about Celeste, Discord to know about it. She's found in the trunk of his car. She's 78 miles away. They're saying she's disappeared before. All of those things, unfortunately, means that no one's hands are clean in this. And I don't think when we get to the bottom of it, we're going to like the answers that we get. A young girl was dismembered. To do that, that's not a crime of passion. That's wickedness, right? This isn't like, oh, something happened, we put her in the trunk. They took the time to dismember her, to put her in the trunk, to then go on tour. If it all points eventually, as the evidence starts to look at this singer, David, we really need to wonder how this person has been operating through social media and contacting her. Like, this is very bothersome.
It will be interesting to see what witnesses they have questioned, if any, to find out evidence of relationships, because I doubt that David will want to be discussing that with police in the midst of what could be a suspicious murder. Could be murder, could be a death, could be an overdose. We don't know yet. But my goodness, you guys are good at this. Lauren Conlon, Pascal, and Segun Oduoluwu, thank you so much for doing this tonight.
Thank you, Ashley. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Looking forward
Thanks
to
for having
seeing
me.
all three of you again. And I love that you're live streaming at the same time. Say hi to all your followers for me. It's been nice being in connection with all of you. We'll do it again. Okay, folks, talk about frustrating. Angie Resendez is killed in Virginia in late May. Her body is found in a duffel bag. A suspect in her murder is behind bars, but it is like pulling teeth to get any information even 4 months later. Here's why. Angie and her accused killer were and are active duty military. And the court-martial process, while time-honored, happens behind closed doors. Up next, someone who was inside those doors, her mother. She is live with new details in Angie's case. If you think it's hard to pry details of a murder investigation out of a police detective, and trust me, it is. Try getting anything out of a military police detective. We've been trying since June to get details on the Navy's investigation into the murder of Angelina Resendez, an active-duty sailor on a warship docked in port in Norfolk, Virginia. Angelina's body was found June 9th, but prosecutors now say she was killed on or about May 29th. That's a week and a half earlier. Authorities say she was killed by a fellow sailor with a history of alleged sex assaults. Everything I just said after June 9th was revealed for the very first time just last week in a closed-door pre-trial hearing. But my next guest was in there. She, too, has fought an uphill battle for crumbs of information and is now fighting for justice. Esmeralda Castle is Angie Resendez's mom. Esmeralda, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And I'm so sad that it has been so hard for you to get information about what happened to Angie. But it's pretty amazing how much you just learned in the hearing last week. Can you tell me what you found out?
There's a lot of details to what happened, but basically, there were several groups who knew about Jeremiah Copeland before he made it to Angie. And that, besides all the details of how it was done, just knowing that they knew, everyone in charge knew. The only people who didn't know were the service members.
So let me talk about a little bit about the information that came out, which is just sort of, it's jaw-dropping to think that this guy was still in the Navy. So his name is Jeremiah Copeland. He's a seaman. He's a culinary specialist, like Angie was as well. They worked together. He was charged with crimes against 4 other women, military and civilian, since the year 2023. Aggravated and abusive sexual contact, aggravated assault through strangulation, 2 separate sexual assaults, and 2 counts of domestic violence. Has anybody explained to you, Esmeralda, why he wasn't already locked up and why he was still in the Navy and able to access your daughter?
Of course not. According to the Navy, they did everything by the law, and they followed the procedures accordingly. And so no one's going to explain that to me. We just see it for ourselves, what it is. This is a pattern.
And
this practice.
And of course,
I
assume they're saying that they're still, these are still charges and that they're maybe not convictions yet, and maybe that's why, but still, I don't know if you're able to, but I think you found out some details as well about how your daughter was treated after she was murdered. Like there were several days when she was hidden.
Those things are hard. Those things are hard to say and to think about and to try to understand why this is happening or why that happened or how that was allowed to happen. And everyone in between who could have done something, who could have helped her, they they chose not to. It was a choice because they knew what she was being looked for, and they knew it was out of character. And if they did see her and did nothing.
The details that came out in this hearing that Angie was murdered in his barracks and that he allegedly kept her remains in a briefcase or duffel bag stowed away in his closet for 4 or more days, but ultimately Angie was found in a black wheeled duffel bag. Esmeralda, we'll continue to follow this case, and hopefully you'll be getting more information as each of these hearings is scheduled. I hope you'll come back and help us to find justice for your daughter, for Angie. I'm so sorry that you and your kids are having to go through this. Esmeralda Castle, seeking justice for her daughter, Angie. We will continue to follow that story. Still to come tonight, anybody with an internet connection can write or post or repost just about anything. Consequences be damned. But tracking down the trolls, cornering the catfish, and rooting out the revenge porn, that takes more than just expertise. It takes commitment. And my next guest has made it his mission. You're going to meet him and see what he's up against in tracking these lowlifes. That's next. James McGivney was bullied. That was when he was growing up. It was long before TikTok and long before Instagram, and it was long before he became a United States Marine. So just try it now. When James saw how social media really changed the game, especially in the thriving field of revenge porn, he said, enough. And he founded the website Bullyville to fight back. You have seen his work in the Netflix series, The Most Hated Man on the Internet. Big recommendation of mine, by the way. And James has now a new special called Bully Hunter, airing tomorrow night on A&E. James McGivney, welcome to the program. Thank you for your service, not just as a Marine, but also in going after these monsters. I can't tell you how much I hate these guys. I don't often call people scum. I think it's a terrible thing to say. But if we're going to ascribe a label, scum is a good one for these online bullies.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the worst of the worst. And I go after the worst of the worst, where law enforcement can't figure out who they are because they're hiding. And that's a big thing with these bullies. It's all the same. They hide behind the, IP addresses that you can't figure out who they are. They're usually in the basement eating a bag of Doritos on their 9th Mountain Dew of the day. It's always the same. And I love being able to pull them out of obscurity and just shining a light on them.
Ooh, me too. But how do you do it? Because I think the rest of us have that problem. They're always using some other kind of IP and we can't find them.
Yeah, that's one of my skills. I mean, I had no friends in high school. I'm a nerd, so I know how to do that. And there's different ways to do it. I don't like to reveal my secrets all the time, but I can tell you that the big thing for me that I'm focusing on, it's twofold. Revenge porn, and obviously tomorrow on A&E, that's the Bully Hunter show that's coming out. But sextortion is the biggest issue I'm dealing with right now. The highest suicide rate in the country right now is 14 to 16-year-old boys who are getting sextorted.
Do you ever do the Chris Hansen thing where you actually can find them and then say, have a seat, and then just confront them? Or is that sort of too dangerous and off limits?
I do that tomorrow night. You're going to see that actually happen. I confront the person, but not only do I confront them, one of the victims confronts them. And I was a little worried about that because I never want to re-victimize somebody, and having the person in front of her that distributed her images to hundreds of websites, I was a little unsure how it was going to go, but I was so proud of her, as you'll see tomorrow. She really, confronted him, and it just shows that once you give a woman her power back, look out.
So I only have a second left here, but I need to ask you that, are you going after victims' family members? Because I can't believe that the Petitos have been attacked by bullies, Shanann Watts' family, the Idaho 4 kids' families. Are you going after those people?
I do go at, that's a big problem that we deal with actually is families of victims will get attacked for no reason other than people think that they can humiliate and destroy their lives. And I do go after them. And, I always find my guy or woman. I always find out who's behind it. So there's never been a situation where I haven't figured it out.
James McGibney, you are not only a fine U.S. Marine, but you're also Dr. McGibney, and you're the coolest nerd I know. Thank you for doing this, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm a huge fan of yours, by the way.
Aw, that's the nicest thing ever. Guys, it's called Bully Hunter. It's tomorrow night on A&E, and we are back in just a moment.